Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Spirit School. I am so excited to come back with you today. I wonder if people have noticed I got rid of the intro. I haven't heard any comments about it, but as a severe podcast listener, I love podcasts. I literally listen to them all the time, more than ebooks, more than anything else, even music. I listen to podcasts, and I find myself skipping through all the intros all the time. Even Oprah, Super Soul Sunday, my absolute favorite podcast in the world. I find myself skipping through the intro. So I was like, well, if I'm thinking of the user and on that end of things, I'm like, people are probably skipping through my intro, even though it's only 15 seconds long. So I got rid of it, and I'm just kind of curious if people notice, which would be kind of funny to find out. So let me know. So I wanted to do today, well, there's actually two ideas brewing in my head. So I asked it to my Instagram peoples. If you're not following me on Instagram yet, I highly encourage it, because if you ever want a session with me, that's where I socialize, where I have availability. At current, I'm booked until February. So whenever I have availability come up, I'm socializing it through my Instagram channel. But I asked all my Instagram peeps, who are pretty much my favorite people on the planet, what they wanted to hear about most. And was it going to be around signs that spirit's around, or is it going to be around fears that come up in the development process? So it went out 57% signs that spirit is around. So that's what we are doing here today. So first, I thought it would be kind of neat to talk about, why does spirit come around? Like, why would there be this event happening in our lives where we'd be able to connect with spirit and hear spirit and feel spirit and seek out mediums to receive validation that our loved ones have made it? Like, what's the purpose? Now, I believe that spirit approaches us for three reasons. One, to let us know that life continues and that our loved ones are okay and they're still very much around. I think another reason spirit comes through is to offer and bring some healing, whether it is receiving a message that offers that healing, or just like energetically, their divine presence offers us healing in some emotional, spiritual, or physical way. I think the third reason behind the purpose of spirit coming around is to bring us inspiration. So if you look at the kind of old school way of doing mediumship through the spiritualist church and spiritualism, people will get up in a platform, and sometimes they will do mediumship demonstrations, and it will be very phenomenal. Like, people who are spiritualist trained can do addresses, names, some pretty heavy duty details, and the belief behind it is very much that the evidence is the message. Nowadays, people kind of need a little bit less evidence, and they're looking more for those messages. So mediumship is really changing. But one of the ways that spiritualists get up and stand in front of an audience is to bring inspiration. So you will see people do inspired talks, and that's basically channeling messages from spirit, and not even in a trance state. This is actually even just standing up, and just as you would do a mediumship demonstration, you're just bringing through inspirations from the world of spirit. So to let you know life, that they're okay and life continues, to bring healing and to bring inspiration into your life. So as a teacher who loves to talk about the clairs, who loves to talk about the clairs, I decided to break down a pretty exhaustive list, but not the exhaustive list, of different ways that spirit will let you know that they're very much around through the clairs. And I'm going to start with the least common and move on to the most common. So there's four main clairs that I typically talk about, which I don't need to refresh here because you guys hear all the time. But two of the lesser talked about clairs is clairalience and clairgustance, which is clear smelling and clear tasting. So I think there's going to be a lot of people listening to this who will definitely have had some of these experiences. Now, smell. I one time woke up out of a dead sleep to it. It smelled like somebody blew cigarette smoke in my face. And I was a smoker for a very long time, and I quit 9 years ago. But it was like this smell of cigarette smell. And I sat up out of bed and I said, Papa. And I didn't know my papa is a smoker, so I had to ask my mom, did papa smoke? She's like, yeah, he was a closet smoker, and he actually died of lung cancer. So what was interesting was the clear smelling was there, but then the clear cognizance, that knowing, I just knew it was my papa. My papa's never come in a reading or anything like that. So some people often smell cookies, or they smell baking, or they smell cologne that their loved ones used to wear, or they smell, lavender or the perfume. They just kind of like smell that scent of their unique loved one. So that's a very common one. And less common is the taste. So I have heard of people saying, I had a client who took care of a loved one for a very long time, and they had to take a certain vitamin, and it would leave this taste in their mouth. And they would sometimes just sit there and like get that taste in their mouth. Now that's kind of a weird one, but it is known to happen. Now, as we move down the list, clairaudience, which is the clear hearing. Some signs that spirit may be around is music. You may hear the same song over and over again. Like say you go into Starbucks, the song is playing, then you hop in your car and turn on the radio, the same song is playing, and then you go like pick up your kid from school and a car passing by is playing that song. Spirit will often bring us repetitive songs, and it could be a song that was played at their funeral or their memory or the memorial, or it's just a song that you know that they used to listen to and love. I even had a spirit come visit me. It's a very personal experience. I don't want to share all the details, but literally the whole song was a message to me, and I knew exactly who it was from. I'd listened to this song many times before. It was a very popular song on the radio back then, but it was like I was thinking about this person and apologizing them into my head for some way that I had wronged them while they were here. And the next song played, and every word was literally a response to what I had just been speaking to them about. It was a very powerful experience for me. And again, sometimes not everything is a sign, but you know when it's a sign, all right? Ear ringing, very common. I used to think I was crazy, and I used to have a mentor who did not believe me that my ears would ring all the time at certain times. She convinced me that I had tinnitus, or however you say it, but I started tracking this ear ringing, and it always happened before an event. And sometimes it just happens if I'm talking to somebody about something very spiritual and I'm getting very excited, my ear will start ringing. And that's kind of like, I feel like a download sometimes as well. So again, that it would be considered the spirit presence, because I am constantly, because of the intentions I've set and the work I've done in the world, a messenger from spirit. Whether I am in a formal reading setting or I'm just out and about having daily interactions with people I run into, I am 100% dedicated to being a constant messenger for spirit. So I feel that those downloads are coming from them. Losing hearing in one ear temporarily. Have you ever been talking to somebody and then all of a sudden you lose hearing in like one or both ears? That's also a sign of like energy shifting and vibration shifting and the atmosphere changing. I've also had in a very haunted location, allegedly haunted location, Chillingham Castle. I stayed in the tower for 2 nights and nothing happened. The only thing that happened was I woke up out of the dead sleep because there was a loud popping sound, and it was like deafening. I mean, if you're deep sleep, any noise can be quite deafening. But I learned very much later on that that's again just atmospheric changes. So sometimes you might hear a loud pop or a cracking sound. Deafening silence. I know people out there know what I'm talking about. You're laying in bed, you're resting for the night, you don't realize it's happening until it ends. And then you realize, wow, it was so loud a second ago. But you think that it's quiet until it actually gets quiet. And then you realize your ears were like, shh. It's almost like this like ambient noise that's deafening. So I call it a deafening silence. Sometimes I can actually catch it while it's happening. Like I'm aware of it now. But it used to only be, I would understand that was happening once it went quiet again. Inspired writing, which can also be considered automatic writing, is a clairaudience way that spirit's around. So this could be journaling or writing a song, because much of the time we're writing poetry or songs, we have spirit around us inspiring us, and they literally encourage us to pick up the pen and just start writing with that inspiration. Again, that's the third reason I said that spirit would come visit us, is to inspire us, and they always want us to pay it forward and let that inspiration ripple around the world. So of course they're going to come in if they know that they're working with somebody who will share their gifts, share their music, share their poetry. So they're like, all right, bring in like Edgar Allan Poe, get this like poetry inspiration to work, because this is going to impact XXX amount of people. High impact. Another one is whispers. Okay, so you may hear a whisper in your mind. It may be like telepathically more than an external voice, but it's like a whisper, like call your mother. and then you ignore it, and then all of a sudden your mother calls you because she got the same whisper. So we get whispered, but we're always expecting a disembodied voice. But more often than not, it sounds like our own thoughts and our own minds encouraging us to do this. Finally, on the clairaudience is actually physically hearing your name. Twice in my life, I have been laying down, not asleep, like if the lights were on, I was not, falling asleep, and I heard my name yelled in my ear by a different sounding voice, external ear stuff, and my name being called. And both times it was super unnerving and a little bit scary. And only one time did I understand who it was. The first time it happened, I didn't know who it was, but I was in a very dangerous situation when it happened. I was with a very violent and dangerous partner. And I knew I had to escape that situation. And so looking back at what I know now, I feel that that was kind of like Spirit's way of really getting my attention. So we move into claircognizance, which is that clear knowing. Some of the signs that I came up with are knowing you'll see someone that day. So this happened to me at the gym the other day. I was thinking about somebody who I was friends with like 10 years before. I'd maybe only seen 3 times in the past 10 years. I was literally at the gym thinking, I'm like, oh, I wonder if I'm going to see this person today. Then went on with my workout, and lo and behold, 2 minutes later, he's standing in front of me looking at me like, hey, Dee, like, how are you? And I said to him, I knew I was going to see you today. So that was kind of like that clear knowing. So obviously Spirit, I believe it was his father, was telling me like, you're going to see so-and-so today. You're going to see so-and-so today. And maybe, who knows, maybe our little tiny interaction, it had nothing to do with Spirit at all. It had to do with kids, but maybe something I said helped him that day. We will see. It was nice seeing him though, for sure. Inspirations to a problem to solve. Okay. And this kind of goes in, I had 2 lines here, but inspirations of a new way to take in life, like a path, a job, inspiration. So if you're torn between following your dreams or keeping your job, you can sometimes receive inspirations through claircognizance, through this knowing that this is a good decision. It doesn't make sense on paper, but I know that this is a good decision. This is Spirit getting our attention through our knowing that we just need to kind of go for it. We need to take a risk. Why not? Live an interesting life. Literal conversations in your head. I swear, my mom used to always say to me, like, why are you just like thinking about yourself? Because you're sitting there like smiling. And she made me feel like I had like an uncontrollable ego. So ego's always been kind of like a hang up for me, because she used to make me feel that I was like thinking about myself all the time, when really I was having conversations with Spirit in my mind, and I was literally having a back and forth dialogue with them. And sometimes Spirit can be funny. And so it literally sounds like a conversation in your own head. You're receiving replies, you're giving a reply back. It's a legit conversation. This is a sign that Spirit is around, and more often than not, we won't understand that we are actually conversing with a loved one or with a guide or an angel. We are going to literally think like, why am I talking to myself all the time? But trust me, just hear me on this. More often than not, you are having a conversation with Spirit, okay? And you will know the difference, because Spirit always speaks to you in uplifting ways, inspirational ways, loving ways. Spirit is never going to drag you down. Spirit is never going to give you bad information. So you should be able to discern if you are truly talking to yourself, because if you're pretty much talking to yourself, you're probably not talking very kindly to yourself, because that's just the way we are nowadays. So try to discern between your conversations with self and conversations with Spirit based off of that meter, okay? One of the most common for me is clairsentience, that clear feeling. So there's a lot here, okay? Shivers. So you know that somebody just walked over my grave feeling. That's a common sign that the atmosphere has changed and Spirit has blended their aura with ours. Anxiety. I can't tell you how many intuitives are on anti-anxiety medication, ADHD medication. I'm not saying that these things don't exist. They do. But when Spirit comes near, we get very anxious. Like my palms start sweating, my heart quickens and starts palpitating. I literally feel like throwing up. And this is a sign that Spirit comes near, because it's a very full nervous system experience when Spirit comes by, especially when you think about your aura expanding. And I mean, they're just like, an aura, and you blend that. two energies together, it's going to feel very foreign to your body. And then if our amygdala kicks in and our brain starts kicking in, and then we can kind of like talk ourselves into other things. This is how come I feel so many people feel like they're haunted or being possessed or have a dark energy around them, is because they feel something so foreign to their energy center. The amygdala kicks in, which is that fear center of our brain, and it just totally runs the show. When really I feel the same anxiety, and I have felt a negative energy before, not a negative spirit. I don't believe in those at all, but I believe in collections of negative energy, negative thought that can kind of like permeate in the energy sphere. And so I kind of know the difference, and I can tell you that my body's reaction, my nervous system reaction, cannot tell the difference of threat between a negative energy or an angel coming in. So please be mindful of that, okay? Please, please, please. I hate hearing people just walk around thinking that they're haunted and possessed when it's really what we've seen on TV and stuff that just make us think that, okay? Anyways, I won't get into that because I told you guys I did a podcast project with my best medium friend, Melissa White. We have a new podcast being launched in January called The Spirit Room, and we have a whole episode on this. So just wait for that. I'm not going to be all controversial here, but hear me out on that. Cobweb feelings. Have you ever felt like you walked through a cobweb, whether it's on your shoulder, on your face? That is a very common sign that you just walked pretty much through an energy center of spirit. Okay, same with tingles. You ever get a tingle on the top of your head or the back of your head? A concentrated tingle like somewhere on your arm or your legs? Very common. To me, that is probably the most common sign that spirit is around. I get a very concentrated tingle on my head, especially my crown chakra and the back of my head and my arms. Same with the goosebumps, right? But the goosebumps is not necessarily an all over body experience like the shivers. Goosebumps are usually quite concentrated. It's like, oh, only my left arm is like covered in goosebumps, or only my forearms are covered in goosebumps. This again, very much a sign that spirit is nearby. All of a sudden you might find yourself getting excited about life and you don't know why. You're like, I just feel like really excited. I feel really good. I feel really motivated. That is spirit's inspiration pressing upon us. That is a beautiful experience and one of my favorites, because you feel so high vibe. You feel so ready to go and take over the world and serve and do amazing things. And that's because spirit is nearby and you're picking up on that ballisto energy who is here to help you do some good work while you're here. And finally, with the clairsentience, just knowing you're not alone. You know, I tell the story often that I knew I had a spirit guide at 7, and you know, to some people that might be perceived as like, oh, she's like a prodigy child. It wasn't like that at all, because I didn't actually physically see my guide until I was in my 30s. But I knew I wasn't alone from a very, very, very young age. I just knew I wasn't alone. And so you may be like, you know, just going about your day, doing laundry, and all of a sudden you get to the kitchen and you just feel that there's eyes on you, that you feel that you're just not alone. And that knowing is a clairsentient reaction, because something causes you to physically like turn around and like look, and you might see a little light, you might see something at the corner of your eye, and that is a telltale sign that spirit is very much around us all as well. Oh, I'm trying to do this without pausing. It's like, whew, whew, whew. I could talk a lot. This episode's already getting kind of long. Finally, clairvoyance. This is the most common ability, I think mostly because of what we see on TV, that people have. And you do hear people but you do hear professional intuitives call themselves clairvoyance. So this is how come this is one of the most common abilities, I feel like. So I just mentioned that corner of the eye. So your peripheral view is actually called your spirit sight. So that's how come so often we will see something in the corner of our eye. Most of the times it's a shadow. Eventually, when you become comfortable with the shadows, it typically becomes little lights, like white lights, and you'll see them at the corner of your eye, and you will turn around and nothing is there. And you'll think you're crazy, but you're not crazy, because that's your spirit sight. So visions in your imagination center, someone is something that could be combined with a clairsentient experience. So you might actually have a vision of your mind of a memory. You might be thinking like, oh, I loved going to the cabin with my dad. I loved fishing with him. And you will start to feel that love, and you will start to feel that gratitude to those experiences that you shared. So that's kind of like a combined experience, a clairvoyance and a clairsentient experience. Spirit visually will try to impress upon us their memories, because those are things that when they look back on their lives are some of their favorite things that they love to look back on. I love it in readings when spirit brings me memories, because even though they appear vague to me, like maybe more vague than a name, there's so much emotion attached to it that I'm like, this is even more powerful. And I just have to trust that my sitter is experiencing the same energy as me. Dream visitations. This is very, very common. I just want to give it a little bit of a disclaimer. I have worked with a lot of people who have lost children, who have had very scary dreams about their loved ones when they pass. I won't get into details, but they can be like nightmarish. I need to discern that these are not visitations. These are release dreams. These are ways of releasing some of our biggest fears that had just been realized in a safe space and way, when we're nurtured by the angels, when we're nurtured by God in our sleep state, because our physical selves protect ourselves. So we don't allow ourselves to release much of what we're grieving in our awake state to try to protect ourselves. So we will have nightmares, which are releases of our anxieties and our grief. But those are not visitations. Visitations are always of love, of light, of high vibration. But you will get visitations from people that seem so real, and you will always second guess it, and more often than not forget about it until like a medium may bring it up again. But know that visitations are very common and a very clairvoyant experience. Numbers. Who doesn't get numbers? Repetitive numbers. This comes up maybe like 2 out of every 10 readings for me. I'll get like a weird sequence of numbers, and that's always my sign. And I'll get that clairvoyantly, and I'll be like, okay, your loved one wants me to know that they are sending you weird numbers, but it's not like 111 or 222. This is literally like, I posted on Instagram yesterday, I get 1024. That's my sign. I need to keep my thoughts really light to not dip into all that's wrong in the world. Because when you're doing mediumship work, you really do get a sense that there's a lot of wrong in the world with what we do. So try to keep those thoughts high. And so we will get from our loved ones and know that spirit is with us when we get those numbers. When you see that number, your loved one is with you at that very moment. Bugs. Who doesn't get bugs? People, I can't stand dragonflies. I'm so terrified of them. They're like the creepiest looking bugs in the world to me. So I don't get dragonflies myself. I actually don't get any bugs. But a lot of people get butterflies. They get ladybugs. They get dragonflies. Spirit must know that I am terrified of bugs, so I don't get them myself. But this world of spirit can really influence quite easily animals and little creatures, because creatures don't have a veil. Animals don't have the veil. The veil is that which separates us human experience and world with that of the spirit world. Again, birds, animals, loved ones. I've had that come up a lot this year, actually. Birds visiting. So that's kind of cool. Memories replaying. I talked about that a little bit earlier, about you all of a sudden remembering something about a loved one. When you are remembering that, they are with you in that very moment. And finally, last but not least, validation through a medium of events that have taken place since the departure of your loved one, validating that they are still around. So you might see a medium, as an example for me. A year ago, I sat with this client. This is just the first thing that's coming to my mind. This comes up all the time, though. And I said, I'm seeing Disneyland, and I feel like I need to tell you, you need to go to Disneyland. And she started crying because it was her son. And she was like, me and my daughter keep talking about going to Disneyland, but she doesn't want to. And that was very validating that he knew that they were having the conversation and not on the same page about going to Disneyland. So he came through saying, you need to go to Disneyland, right? So that clairvoyantly, because he showed me Disneyland, is a sign that they still see what's going on since they've left. And that can be very comforting and validating for people. So I know that there are definitely more signs out there that spirit is very much around, but I think this is like 40 points. So I would love to hear. I posed the question on my Instagram today. It'll be up for the next 24 hours. What signs do you receive from spirit? And we will just keep adding it to this list. All right, guys? I hope you really enjoyed this episode. I hope you received some synchronicities through the episode, which, hello, even just saying synchronicity is another sign that spirit is around and working their magic with you. But I hope that you enjoyed it and you have a fabulous weekend. And I'm going to start asking, if you don't mind, because people are really discovering this podcast. It's now listened in over 25 countries. And, I'm getting a few hundred downloads a day now. So I'm getting kind of excited because I realize that it's really helping a lot of people out there. So if you don't mind leaving a 5-star and a review, I would be so grateful so that it comes up. I'm pretty sure there's algorithms here involved. I'm pretty sure. But like it, love it, share it, rate it. Thank you, everyone. See you later.